an ambitious assistant editor named Brett walks through the bustling streets of New York while editing a manuscript. She got distracted when she notices a book displayed in a local library and comes up with a quite mischievous plan. She swaps the display with the book she has edited, but the library worker catches her. She tries to plead with him to display her book, saying that if it garners attention, she could finally secure her promotion as a full editor. The worker is unfazed, and he hands her a newspaper with an article featuring Archie Knox, an influential figure in the literary world, suggesting she take her complaints up with him, as he's the one responsible for inspecting library displays. Intrigued, Brett decides to attend one of Archie's book signings the very next morning. She meets her friend Chloe at the library just in time for the event, and both are immediately struck by Archie's charisma and good looks. When Archie takes the stage to speak about his book, Brett can't help but smile throughout his talk. Afterward, as they join the line to get their book signed, something unexpected happens. When it's Brett's turn, Archie interrupts the writer, catching Brett off guard by introducing himself. He assumes that her father must be a novelist and named her after a character from a novel. With a grin, Brett gently corrects him and says that her father is actually a doctor. Archie finds Brett charming and amusing, so he subtly invites her to a drink. When they arrive at a restaurant, Brett orders a crepe, but Archie instructs the waiter to bring her a salad instead. Their conversation is interrupted when an elegant older woman approaches their table. It turns out to be Margaret, a prominent figure in the literary world. She's thrilled to see Archie, and he seizes the chance to introduce Brett, giving her the opportunity to meet someone important in her field. After dinner, they take a stroll to a nearby candy shop where Brett picks up some sweets. While sitting down, she opens up to Archie about her struggles at work, confessing that many people doubt her abilities. She asks him for advice on navigating the demanding world of editing, and Archie's advice is simple but profound. Patience is the key for any editor. His words remind Brett of her late Aunt Helen, who once told her to never take a job that makes her feel unimportant. Intrigued by this, Archie asks for her aunt's surname, and to Brett's surprise, he realizes he knew her aunt well. He fondly recalls the fun times they shared, expressing how her beauty had inspired him to write one of his books. This revelation draws them closer as they bond over shared memories of someone dear to both of them. With a gentle lift of her chin, Archie reassures Brett, saying he can see her aunt's spark in her eyes. As the evening winds down, Archie walks Brett back to her apartment. When they arrive at her building, Archie is taken aback to learn that she's living in her Aunt Helen's old apartment. She explains that the apartment had been passed down to her, and Archie's face lights up with memories, recalling the wild parties and unforgettable times Helen used to host there. Archie gives Brett a seductive and inviting look, but Brett, feeling the moment's intensity, gently reminds him that she has a boyfriend. Unbothered, Archie simply asks where this boyfriend of hers might be, and she explains that he's in Europe, on a journey to find himself. Archie chuckles and asks what could he possibly be searching for when he already has someone like her. With a warm smile, he wishes her good night and heads off, leaving Brett to reflect on their encounter. The next morning, Brett arrives at work, only to find an unfamiliar man casually doing push-ups on her desk. Completely bewildered, she asks him why he's in her office, but he just waves her off, telling her to ask their boss. When Brett arrives at her boss's office, she finds her new manager struggling to pull down the blinds while wearing an unexpectedly revealing outfit. Seeing her discomfort, Brett quickly steps in to help. The boss introduces herself as Faye and reveals that Dory, the previous boss, has been fired. Though taken aback, Brett has little choice but to accept the news and heads back to her desk, quietly sharing the surprising update with her colleagues. Brett calls her father to vent about all the sudden changes at work. Her father listens patiently, advising her to take things in stride. After the call, a colleague informs her that she has a voicemail from Archie, which brings a smile to her face. Playing the message, she hears Archie's invitation for dinner at his home that evening. Excited, Brett heads home after work where she takes a quick shower, paints her nails, and puts on some makeup. Arriving at Archie's house, she's immediately struck by its grandeur and elegance. When she rings the bell, he opens the door right away and warmly invites her inside. She marvels at the sight of 4 floors rising above her. Archie offers to tour her to various rooms, including his daughter's and the expansive library. When they finally approach the master bedroom, Brett politely declines to enter. They later settle down for dinner, and Brett opens up about her work struggles, explaining her previous dynamic with Dory and how everything has changed since her replacement. As their conversation continues, Archie tops off Brett's empty glass, but only hers, which she finds odd. She asks why he isn't drinking, and Archie confesses that he's a recovering alcoholic. Brett laughs as she thinks that he's joking, but his serious expression stops her, prompting an apology. To ease the moment, Archie asks about her boyfriend and if he truly makes her happy. Brett assures him she's content with Jed, but Archie raises an eyebrow as he is clearly unconvinced. Trying to impress her with his insights, he mentions Dante's description of hell and how it relates to her relationship. Brett, however, challenges him by saying that Dante never made such a claim. Intrigued, they spend the evening poring over his book, determined to settle the debate, with Brett ultimately proving herself right. After a delightful evening, Archie offers to drive her home. Once they arrive at her apartment, he surprises her with a small gift, asking her to open it when she's alone. Brett playfully asks if this is part of some experiment to see how long it will take to seduce a younger woman, and Archie insists he has no such intentions before leaning in and kissing her softly. She doesn't pull away, allowing the moment to linger as he drives off into the night. As soon as she's alone, Brett can't resist unwrapping the gift. She finds a copy of his book, a gesture that leaves her thinking about their encounter long after. Brett smiles to herself, but her daydreaming abruptly ends when she finds out that her boyfriend Jed has returned. He pulls her into a hug and showers her with kisses, asking if she can make him a grilled cheese sandwich. Brett obliges, and when she returns with the sandwich, she finds him already asleep on the couch. She sets the plate down and picks up Archie's book. She is completely absorbed by his novel that she ends up finishing it the next day at work. She later receives a call from Archie, who hints at a surprise waiting for her at the local library. Her heart flutters as she sees that her edited book is finally on display. The next day, Brett finally decides to end it with Jed by telling him that she's already met someone else. He takes it in stride, and they agree that he can stay on the couch until he finds a new place. Later, when Brett shares the news with her father, he expresses concern that she isn't showing much emotion after the breakup. She reassures him, saying that letting Jed go doesn't feel like a loss. Taking the chance, Brett tells her father about Archie, and to her relief, he doesn't seem bothered by the age gap. After a day spent with her father, Brett enjoys a quiet dinner alone but finds herself wanting to see Archie. She decides to go to his place, and for the first time, the two share a very intimate and passionate night together. Though she's still in a blissful mood the next morning, her spirits dip when she finds out that her name hasn't been credited in the book she spent 6 months editing. Determined to shake off her disappointment, Brett looks forward to a weekend getaway with Archie, hoping it will make up for the letdown. However, her mood sours again when her coworker dumps a thick book on her desk, due to be edited by Monday. Rather than let this spoil her weekend, she decides to bring the work along. Archie is supportive but suggests calling her boss to ease her workload, offering to speak up on her behalf. Brett politely declines, deciding to manage it herself. They stop at a roadside stand to enjoy burgers, and while waiting in line, Brett notices Archie on the phone, visibly tense. She later asks him about the call, and Archie claims that he left a message for his daughter because it is her birthday. Curious, Brett asks why she wouldn't talk to him, and Archie confesses that his behavior in the past caused a lot of strain in their relationship. That evening, the two share another intimate moment, but Archie later senses that something is troubling her. He gently asks if everything's okay, and Brett confides that she's been dealing with work-related anxiety and finally asks for his help. Archie schemes through her current assignments, none of which seem to impress him. He advises her not to fear and tell her boss that she won't be taking on tasks outside her work hours. Though hesitant, Brett knows deep down he's right. Throughout the weekend, Brett puts work aside, allowing herself to focus on her relationship with Archie. They spend quality time together, feeling more like a true couple with each passing day. However, when she returns, her best friend Chloe gives her a hard dose of reality. She finds it strange that Brett would consider moving in with someone who is over 20 years older and is struggling with alcoholism. Brett acknowledges all of it, but insists that Archie brings out the best in her. In the following days, Brett begins moving her things into Archie's apartment. While organizing her clothes, she stumbles across a photo album filled with pictures of young women her age with some posing flirtatiously. However, it doesn't seem to bother her, and when Archie tries to explain, Brett says she is not interested in his past relationships. Instead, she hands him a small blue box. He is surprised to find a smartphone, and he sarcastically thanks her for bringing him into the 21st century. Brett tells him to check the messages she sent, which turns out to be playfully daring, sparking another intimate moment for the two. Monday arrives and Brett submits her report to her boss. Faye asks for the edited content, and steeling herself, Brett repeats exactly what Archie had advised her. Taken aback by Brett's newfound confidence, Faye asks if Archie told her to say that, because that is what he used to tell her too. This comment unsettles Brett, causing her to second-guess her relationship with Archie. Archie picks her up that evening, excitedly sharing that his daughter called and invited him to a concert. He mentions wanting Brett to join them, but already feeling uncertain, she suggests it might not be the best idea. Sensing her hesitation, Archie presents her with a beautiful dress and suggests she wear it to elevate her look. Brett feels criticized rather than cared for and lets him know she doesn't appreciate the comment. After their argument, Brett decides to take the high road, showing up to the party in the dress Archie wanted her to wear. They're welcomed by Margaret, who compliments her dress but criticizes her choice of shoes. Quickly, Margaret pulls Archie away, leaving Brett alone among the glamorous crowd. Feeling out of place, Brett heads to the bar and orders a strong drink. One drink leads to another, and soon she's buzzed enough to feel bolder than usual. Spotting Archie in conversation with friends, Brett saunters over and blurts out that Archie once had a fling with her boss Faye. Awkward silence falls, but Brett continues spilling details about Faye and Archie. Realizing things have gone too far, Archie pulls her aside for a long overdue talk. Brett demands to know why he kept his past with Faye a secret when he knew how seriously she took her career. Instead of addressing her feelings, Archie corrects her grammar mid-conversation, which only infuriates her more. She accuses him of being dismissive, and he responds by saying he's only trying to help her improve. Brett tells him she doesn't want his so-called improvement, and Archie then remarks that she'll never make it as an editor if she's unwilling to change. His words hits her hard, so she decides to walk away. He asks where she's going, and while in the middle of the crowd, Brett shouts that she's heading to the bathroom, drawing the attention of everyone around them. Fed up with the pretentious atmosphere, Brett heads for the exit, but not before she impulsively kisses a passing waiter. As they arrive at her apartment, Archie promises not to keep any more secrets, and in a sweet gesture, he scoops her up and carries her inside. The next morning, Archie reviews her editing, and when Brett asks what he thinks, her boyfriend tells her that she is over-editing, as if she's trying too hard to impress Faye rather than focusing on the writer's voice. To make her relax, they go to the cinema that evening. However, Brett finds the movie dull, so she instead seduces Archie to make him go home. Being a true gentleman, Archie insists they stay until the end. After the movie, they run into her ex Jed, who is with his new girlfriend. The couple dives into a passionate display, and Brett and Archie take the cue to make their escape. The following evening at work, Brett vents to her father her frustrations about her job. He gently reminds her of her dream to become an editor, but she complains that working as an assistant editor feels pointless. By then, Brett suddenly remembers her plan to attend a concert with Archie and his daughter, so she rushes to make it on time. A bit late, Brett jumps out of the taxi and sees Archie waiting alone outside. Despite her apologies, he suddenly raises his voice on her, saying that his daughter ditched him while his girlfriend arrived late, making him feel like he didn't matter. Brett pushes back, telling him not to treat her like his child and that his struggles as a father aren't her fault. Realizing she's right, Archie walks away in silence. The next day, Chloe says that she already warned her about Archie being a controlling guy, and Brett admits she was right, saying she feels older since being with him. To cheer her up, Chloe points to a lady who is reading a book she edited. This brightens her day, so Brett decides to cook dinner for her boyfriend that night. She excitedly talks about the dish she'll make, but then she hears heels coming down the stairs. She turns to see a young woman, who casually takes her bag and leaves. Confused, Brett goes to Archie's office and finds him drinking. With tears in her eyes, Brett asks Archie who the girl is, and the old man simply says that she is his way out. Without needing any more explanation, Brett quietly leaves the apartment. The next morning, Brett heads back to her hometown with her father driving. He gently asks about her relationship with Archie, and she tells him that it's over. He replies that it's probably for the best, which makes Brett wonder why he thinks so. Without a clear answer, he just says he's trying to make her feel better. They arrive at her childhood home, where her mother Marlene greets them outside, proudly pointing out that she's painted the house a new color. However, Brett struggles to notice the difference and proceeds to get inside. As she takes her bags to her old bedroom, her brother Ethan suddenly tells her that their father has cancer. Shocked, Brett is soon seated with her father, who claims he didn't tell her earlier because he didn't want to interfere with her personal life. Brett is understandably upset, feeling hurt that she was the last to know. She says that there should be no secrets in the family, but her brother mockingly points out how she kept her old boyfriend a secret. Before the argument could escalate, Marlene intervenes and announces that dinner is ready. As winter sets in, Brett feels miserable, lying in bed with her belongings scattered around. Chloe later comes over and encourages her to move on, mentioning that she saw Archie with another girl. However, instead of going out, Brett ends up catching a cold. Despite her sickness, her boss insists that Brett attend an important meeting. With no choice, Brett gets ready and heads to the restaurant. There, she meets an older author with a younger companion, who initially mistakes her for a fan. Brett explains she's representing Faye, and when asked why Faye isn't there, she jokes that Faye has herpes, making the author laugh. As they get to business, the author requests 500,000 copies of his memoir, to which Brett confidently assures him that all his demands can be met. However, when she suggests turning his memoir into a movie, the author got mad and attempts to leave the meeting. Just in time, Archie unexpectedly appears, and knowing the author personally, he manages to salvage the deal. Grateful for his help, Brett later snuggles into his arms, where they discuss her father's illness. She confesses her struggles, but Archie reassures her that she's much stronger than she believes. He then opens up about taking a daily pill that prevents him from drinking, adding that he's missed her and invites her to stay over. Without hesitation, Brett agrees, and they kiss after a long separation. Time passes, and Brett grows more secure in her relationship with Archie. She also begins to trust her own instincts at work instead of always seeking her boyfriend's advice. Eventually, Brett takes Archie to meet her family, and during a somewhat tense lunch, Archie decides to break the silence by asking Brett's father how old he is. When Robert says he's 57, Archie reveals he's 50, which relaxes the atmosphere. While in the kitchen, Brett hesitantly asks Marlene what she thinks of Archie, and to her relief, her mother seems to approve. When Brett returns to the living room with a coffee, she finds the two old men both asleep in front of the TV. Seeing this, Ethan teases her and tells her to find kids her age to play with. Brett decides to stay as she wants to spend more time with her family. Before leaving, Archie asks her to reconsider, saying he needs her more than she realizes. Although Brett smiles at him, her decision remains unchanged. One day, her father wakes her up with the news that Archie has been admitted to the hospital. He asks if Archie is an alcoholic, and feeling embarrassed, Brett admits that he is. Robert expresses concern, explaining that Archie couldn't take care of himself and he worries that Brett would end up spending her life taking care of him. His protective words touch her deeply, and she hugs him tightly. Brett visits the hospital, where a nurse mistakes her for his daughter. Frustrated by the assumption, Brett loudly says that she's his girlfriend and she had slept with him. Upon arriving at his room, Archie and his friend teases her by mimicking what she said to the nurse. Now that they're alone, Brett seeks comfort in Archie's arms and asks him if he started drinking again. To her shock, Archie confesses that he never stopped, and that he was just hiding it from her. Not long after, Brett's father passes away. Archie comforts her through the phone, assuring her of his love as she mourns her father's death. Her brother later joins her in the swing, and despite their rocky relationship, he promises to always be there for her. She shares her regret about making their father worried before he passed, but then Ethan reveals that he wasn't worried. He claims that he once offered to assassinate Archie, but their father insisted Brett would be fine. This makes her smile as she breathes a sigh of relief. Feeling clearer, Brett returns to the city to make things right. She gathers the rest of her things from Archie's apartment, but before leaving, Archie asks her to check her phone. She smiles a bit, but then she apologizes and says no. Archie then asks why she wouldn't marry him. She explains that their relationship would never work because he always tends to run away. She reminds him that he can always have his pick of women, leaving Archie in tears. She gives him an envelope and asks him to open it later. Before she leaves, Archie hands her the book he wrote about them, and when she asks if it has a happy ending, Archie says they deserve one. They share one last kiss, and when she leaves, Archie opens the envelope with a note that it is for his collection. Inside is a photo of Brett, making him realize that she has always been the special one. Did you like our movie recap? Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. To be updated for new movie recaps, hit the notification bell.